Joining us now is David Nixon. And David, we're going to start with the Twitter question. What are your biggest question marks for BYU football as the team opens camp this week?
Oh man, I think there's a few intriguing things that we have to look at. Everyone keeps mentioning Taysom's, passing efficiency, things like that. But I really think it comes down to the trenches. I think you got to look at both the offensive line and defensive line. And obviously, the cliche is everything starts down the trenches, and that's where the true foundation is of both offense and defense side of the ball. But I really do believe last year with kind of the shuffle of the offensive line and how poor they played, which once again I think led directly to Taysom's inability to maybe have a higher passing completion percentage. But I think it starts with the O-line, and if they can come together, once again, there's guys that last year had quality reps. Now they're second year underneath an eye. They understand the offense. If they can really come together this year as an offensive unit, as an offensive line, I think there's some special things. I mean, you look at the names. You've got Wesley, Yek, Fusi, Kersley, Matthews. I mean, these are guys that got some good quality time. And I think that, I think everyone's expecting big things from them this year. And if they can shore up that offensive line and provide a pocket for Taysom, I think you're going to see, a direct result with that whole percentage going up, Taysom's completion percentage going up.
Yeah, you assume they'll get better just because 10 guys that started a game come back. That's not even how many guys played in a game per se, so that number would be even higher, you'd think. But the question, David, for me is just because it's year two of the offense and they know what to expect in the body type and they've been able to shape themselves in the offseason, they should be ready to rock this year as opposed to last year, which was what the heck's going on in the first game and we're trying to go so fast. I think that adjustment period's over, right?
Yeah, I think so, and you're right. I think last year we saw it happen a lot where there are obviously gaps in the offensive line. I think they understand really their past responsibilities as far as dropping back as a unit together. I think there were holes in that offensive line where the rush defense was able to get in there and create and wreak havoc and flush Taysom out of the pocket. And so I think there was kind of some miscommunication going on. But you're right. They had the entire offseason. They've now got a year underneath their belt. And believe it or not, the confidence that they now have, knowing that they've all played together, they know what the guard or the tackle next to them is going to be doing. They're all on the same page. I mean, just the confidence level usually is a huge boost for those guys. Because at offensive line, you all have to be on the same page. Obviously, if there's one of them that are not, then the defensive line or linebackers, whoever it is going to find that crease, and they're going to exploit it. So with the offensive line being on the same page this year, and I know Coach Tujay is doing a great job down there getting those guys ready, I'm excited to see how they gel together. And I think you're going to see an offensive scheme and an offensive attack that looks completely different than from last year.
David Nixon played 4 seasons in the NFL as a linebacker, was at BYU from 2003 till 2008, and is now working as a BYU TV sports football analyst. David, 10 different starters on the offensive line is a ton. In the go fast, go hard offense, is that the norm? Should we get used to that? Or do you think that we'll see more like 5 or 6 guys that will be the consistent starters? And what do you prefer?
I think you'll see those consistent 5 or 6 stars, but listen, there's never a bad thing about having too much depth, and especially in an offense like this where it's a very fast-paced offense, you can sub those guys in and out. I mean, you look at defensively, D-line guys are always subbing in and out, so to have the luxury on the offensive side of the ball to have new, fresh legs coming in, it's a great thing to have. So no doubt that having that many guys that have that much experience is positive, and I think the most important thing is how having those 10 guys, it kind of breeds that competitive nature where these guys are going to be going after each other come camp, and everyone knows they're going to have to go out there each practice with their A game because they've got another guy who got playing time last year that's going to want to take his spot. So, I think that's probably the most exciting part about it is everyone's going to be pushing each other to get better each and every day, which will only, once again, help that unit come together and be a solid unit as it is.
You mentioned the trenches and that importance. We talked about the offensive line. Let's talk defensive line. BYU's defense is set up to where linebackers make the plays. There's not a lot of glory in the defensive line, but out of spring, BYU had Graham Rowley off a mission at left end, nose tackle Marcus Johnson, and then Remington Peck, Travis Tuiloma in the mix as well. Who do you see as the main dudes on the defensive line this year, David?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I was thinking about that earlier. You look back in the last few years, and BYU's always kind of had that main man, right? The last few years was Ethan Manamaliuna. Previous to that, you had Jan Jorgensen, Ziggy, Romney Fuga. You had these names that were kind of the leader of that unit, and they were kind of the solid core foundation of that unit. This year, you look at it, and it'll be interesting to see which one of those three starters kind of emerges as the leader for the defensive line. Because as of right now, you just mentioned we got three big names that I think will all produce. But at the end of the day, you've got to have a leader, and you've got to have that go-to guy where you can kind of shift him around to different shades and techniques on the D line, and have him kind of be versatile where he can play different positions. And so who's it going to be? Is it going to be Marquise? Is it going to be Graham Rowley? Is it going to be Remington Peck? I don't know, to be honest. I think that's one question that will have to be answered here throughout camp, is who's going to be the guy. And once again, I think that's one of the big question marks going into fall camp about the D-line is who's going to step up. And, obviously great talent, and they've got good depth there too, working on that, and that's something will be throughout camp, working on the depth there. But, I'm anxious to see who emerges as a guy. If I had to take a pick right now, I'd probably go with Remington Peck, only because his work ethic. I've worked out with him personally, and he's got a great work ethic, and he's a great athlete, and he's got that leadership capability in him. But once again, it'd be great to see those other guys emerge.
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation. The biggest question mark for Jerem and I, and we discussed this at length at the top of the show, is the wide receivers. Who is going to start? They've brought in this wealth of talent. That's what we've been told all summer long, is how amazing and how fast and how great these guys are. But who's going to start when they trot out on the field against Connecticut?
Yeah, it's a very intriguing question also, right? I think, it's one of those answers that we can't answer it until one of those questions we can't answer until really trot out against Connecticut, because once again, injuries happen every day in fall camp. And then once again, just similar to the offensive line, you've got these guys out there competing that, you got Blackman, you've got Mitch Matthews. I mean, you've got Dorian Leslie. You've got a wide array of receivers competing. And you got Kurt Henderson, guys who played last year, and so you've got a lot of depth. You got some newcomers. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who emerges. Ross Apple. You got guys coming off injuries that, once again, if everybody can be healthy, you'll have some guys that'll be able to rotate through. And then at the same time, who's going to be the leader? Who's going to be the leader of the wide receiver corps? Last year, obviously, you had Cody Hoffman. I mean, the guy set records. He was the guy. So who's going to become the guy this year? My pick, and I've said before, is Mitch Matthews. I think last year when he was healthy, he was a true producer, and he was a big, deep threat. And the fact that he was so big, he could separate himself from the defensive backs, go up and grab the ball at his highest peak. I mean, the guy's an athlete. The biggest thing is, once again, just keeping him healthy. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Once again, it's great to have depth with these other newcomers and guys up and coming. So that's never a bad thing, obviously. But who's going to become the leader, and who's going to become Taysom's go-to guy? Because at the end of the day, every quarterback has a go-to guy. And somebody has to emerge as that guy that when it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, Taysom can look up this certain receiver, whoever it is, and he knows that he can throw a ball to him, and this guy can separate himself, make a big catch, and get a first down. And that's exactly what fall camp's for.
Jerem Jordan used his mathematics and formulating awesomeness to come up with our stat of the day. 24% is all that BYU returns in terms of the
catches from wide receivers.
From wide receivers. 24%. Does that concern you at all, that there is a huge gap to replace? Because I feel like people are like, oh, we're good. But are you concerned? Because that kind of concerns me.
It does a little bit, but you got to remember, I mean, the majority of those catches were to Cody Hoffman, and obviously whenever you got a guy graduate and leave, I mean, there's going to be a big gap there. But just as every year, I mean, Austin Collie, I imagine when he was there, he was getting probably the same amount of touches as Cody Hoffman, and when he left, there was probably that big discrepancy of that 75% or whatever it may be. But every year, guys have to step up, and guys have to become playmakers, and that's what these next few weeks are for. Coaches break down every single play of every single practice. They look at each player, how their steps, how their feet were working, how their hands were working. I mean, they spend hours and hours breaking down the fine details of each player to make that educated decision to see who starts and who's going to be the main contributor. So that's when you have to have faith in the coaching staff that they're going to continue to coach those guys up, get them better, and then once it does come time for Connecticut, that you'll have the best receivers out there on the field.
Does Taysom want to run less this year, or was he okay with the amount of carries he had?
talking to him, I know his body took a beating. I mean, there's no question that when you're running that many times per game and you're getting hit that many times per game, your body's going to take a beating. I think he'd prefer to probably sit back a little more in the pocket, but once again, you look at last year and with the offensive line problems that were with the breakdowns, it kind of forced him to kind of flush out of the pocket. So I'm confident this year those issues will kind of be behind, and the offensive line once again will be able to kind of shore up and be a one solid unit. But I think Taysom's confident in his skills that if he does need to get out and run, he'll run. But at the end of the day, I think he obviously has the capabilities to be a great passer, and if the offensive line can just give him a little bit more time, I think you'll see him become more of a pocket passer. But at the same time, an athlete who can definitely beat you with his legs.
On a scale of 1 to 10, David Nixon, how excited are you that actual football is back, beginning with the NFL Hall of Fame game this weekend?
12.
Just a 12? Not higher?
I sat around this weekend with absolutely positively nothing to watch, and it was tough. I love golf, so I've been watching golf, but that's just not the same as watching football. So I'm more than excited for football to return. I can't believe it's honestly here. I was just with Craig Bills yesterday, and we were talking about how they're reporting this week, and I'm just blown away that this summer's already flown by. But I couldn't be more excited. It's such a fun time of the year, and I'm excited for BYU. They've got a great schedule lined up. I think if they can get off to a hot start, they could take that momentum and roll through the rest of the season. And I'm excited about the guys that get to step up. I mean, this is what college football is all about. You've got turnover every year. You got guys that graduate, and this is the time that you prepare all summer, all winter for. And now's the time to report to camp and go out there and show the coaches that you improved over these last few months, and you're ready to get out there on the field.
David Nixon on BYU Sports Station. Great to have you with us, man.